Hey everyone, welcome into the very first episode of the Ducks After Dinner podcast. My name is Nathan Bishop. I am going to give you a little introduction about who I am, why I'm making this podcast. Then I want to talk a little bit about some of the top stories that were from today about the Ducks football team. And then also, I want to talk a little bit about my favorite Duck podcasts that are currently out there for your consumption, and then a little bit about some of the top national podcasts that I listen to. And then that's going to be it for the first episode. I'm planning on doing this 2, maybe 3 times a week. So let me just kind of give you an introduction. So my name is Nathan Bishop. I was in sports journalism for about 8 years, back in the early 2000s. I was originally an intern with 910 The Fan at the time. Now it's, I think, 105.1 or something like that, The Fan in Portland. And then I worked for a company called sportstalk.com, which was eventually bought by ESPN and turned into ESPN Insider. And I was there for about 6 years. And then I moved over to hoopsworld.com and I covered the Blazers for 3 years as a credentialed writer. And I kind of got burned out and went back to school and went to a completely different field, which I really enjoy. But I still miss the content creation. I miss being able to share opinions and talk sports and just kind of share the passion about different sports teams, and these days really it's the Ducks that are that have been and still are kind of my primary passion. Been following the Ducks since I was 12, and that was a very long time ago now. But I've been really itching to make a new podcast about the Ducks, and there's so many podcasts about the Ducks out there right now, a lot of really good ones too, and what I'm trying to do is fill a different niche. I'm not an X's and O's guy. I'm not going to be a guy who can really break down film and talk about what happened in the game and talk about some of the different offensive schemes and defensive schemes. And there's already a bunch of different podcasts that are really good at that. And actually, I'll talk about that a little bit later. But there's already so many good podcasts for that kind of thing. And really what I enjoy doing is just consuming Duck content, probably like a lot of you. I mean, I listen to a lot of different podcasts. I read a lot of articles. I spend a lot of time on Scoop Duck, on the forum, just reading different articles that get posted either by the Scoop Duck team or from other places. I spend a lot of time on Reddit as well. So what I envision for this podcast is I would like to, 2 or 3 times a week, just really pull together all the different things that I have seen with Oregon football around the web, whether it's podcasts or YouTube videos or different articles that I think are really interesting, and then just talk about them and kind of fill you all in, because I know a lot of people don't have time to listen to podcasts. I do, either in my work or, I spend a lot of time driving, commuting on the days I end up having to go into the office. So I listen to a lot of podcasts, and so I think what I'd like to do is just really give everyone a rundown of what I'm seeing out there on the web about the Oregon Ducks, and also I'm planning on writing some articles on Scoop Duck. I just posted one today. Writing is definitely an old comfort food for me, just because I really enjoy getting to sit down and gather my thoughts and just put everything into on paper into one cohesive line of thought. And podcasts are really more just getting to talk, and I enjoy that too, but it's nice to be able to just kind of sit down and really gather all of your thoughts into one thing. But it seems like these days, especially with younger fans, it's all about video and TikTok and all that. So that's who I am. That's what I'm envisioning for this podcast. So just today, looking around the web, one thing that jumped out to me, and I already shared this on the Scoop Duck forum, but there's just been a lot of talk about Dante Moore, and I actually just wrote an article today about Dante, and I think it was like 6 days ago the NCAA passed or decided to change the portal rules to only have one transfer portal a year, and that's going to most likely, I don't think they've actually approve the dates yet, but that's going to actually happen in January, probably right after the first round of the playoffs. And a lot of people like the idea of having one transfer portal, and I think I do too. I didn't particularly care for the fact that last year, you had guys that were transferring before the playoffs even started. And that could still be a problem this year because the portal's going to open right smack in the middle of the playoffs, and they're giving players the ability to transfer 5 days after their team is eliminated, and that's great. But at the same time, if a guy's thinking about transferring, they're not going to want to play. So I think we'll have to see how it works out, but my concern, at least for the Ducks, is that there's so much good press about Dante Moore right now. He's kind of the hot name on all these different national pundits and analysts' lips, and so I dug around quite a bit this week, and he's already mocked to go in the first round by several different NFL mock drafts. I think CBS and I can't remember the other one, but they have him mocked at number 12 to the Pittsburgh Steelers. And then ESPN actually has him ranked as the 10th best prospect in the NFL draft. So it's looking more and more like Dante Moore, might not be back next year. And, I think we would all love to see him for another year in a Duck uniform. And it probably actually would be good for him to play another year. But if he's given a first round grade, and especially if he's projected as like a top 10 pick, I don't know if we're going to see him come back. So the transfer portal could be an issue for the Ducks, because if Austin Novosad has to decide if he's going to transfer in January, and Dante probably wouldn't, declare for the NFL draft until later, a few months later down the road, they're going to really want to know, like, hey, which way is he leaning? Is he thinking about going pro, or is he thinking about coming back for another year? Because I can't imagine Novosad's going to want to sit for another season behind him. He's going to want an opportunity to start, whether that's with the Ducks or with another team. And like, let's say it's not Novosad. Maybe the Ducks don't think Novosad is the guy. He's supposedly there was a pretty decent QB race there with him and Dante, but maybe they don't think he's the one that could lead them to a championship. So the problem is that they would want to be able to hit the transfer portal to potentially go out and get another guy, and they're not going to want to do that if they don't know what's going on with Dante. So I wrote that article today. It's posted for free, so anyone can go and check it out. I'll leave a link to it in the description for this video. But the news that came out today was CBS has been posting a weekly quarterback ranking for college football, and several weeks ago they had Dante ranked 30th at the quarterback position, and that just seemed pretty laughable that he's the 30th best quarterback in college football. And they finally moved him up all the way to number 12, which is just still pretty ridiculous. Meanwhile, Mendoza from Indiana has been moved up from I think he actually was ranked 30th last week, and now he's moved up all the way to number 1 just because they beat a top 10 team last week. So I'll include a link to that article as well, but he is climbing. He's getting more notoriety. I mean, Joel Klatt was extremely complimentary of Dante. He actually thinks that Dante's going to be a finalist for the Heisman, and Vegas agrees, because Vegas right now has Dante tied for second for best odds for Heisman. He's tied with Carson Beck, and actually the number 1 player is Mendoza, I think, and he's got his odds are plus 850. So right now, he's tied with Jeremiah Smith. He's not tied with Carson Beck, but and that's according to FanDuel. But right now your finalists would be Mendoza, Dante, Jeremiah Smith. So, um, that obviously could change. If the Ducks don't win this weekend, um, he could take a little bit of fall there. But if they do pull off the upset in Happy Valley, then I think seeing Dante climb all the way, I mean, that I would think that would propel him into the top spot for Heisman, and also increase his odds of being a top 10 pick in the NFL draft this spring. So I just think it's really interesting though, because I was looking at Dante's stats for the season, and right now he's seventh. So this is, he's been sitting like second halves, like almost every game. I think the Beavers game was the first time that he actually really played. I think 3 full quarters, but with only have played like the first half in most of these games, Dante's seventh for overall passing yards with 962 just in the Big Ten. He's fourth in completion percentage at just under 75%. He's fourth in average yards per pass with 10.1 yards. He's second in TDs with 11. And then ESPN has their rating system. He's fifth at 195.9. And I was curious because this is just in the Big Ten. These are rankings in the Big Ten. If you took those stats and you put them in the SEC, he would be number 1 in the SEC in rating. The next best would be Ty Simpson at 186.6. He'd be number 1 in completion percentage. The best right now is Diego Pavia at 73.9%. He'd be tied for 4th in overall yards with Garrett Nussmeier, and he would be 3rd in average yards. The top is 11.6 with Trinidad Chambliss. So he'd be arguably the best quarterback in the SEC right now with those stats. So I think we're gonna have to keep an eye on it, and the season's still very early. We're only like a third of the way in, but Dante has clearly been playing very well, and people are noticing. Scouts, national writers and podcasters, and everybody's just been extremely impressed with his throwing and his decision making. So we'll have to keep an eye on it. I think if we beat Penn State, then there's a good chance he'll climb up again in that CBS quarterback ranking. The other big thing that came out today was the Ducks released their uniforms for the Penn State game. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to try to show the kind of teaser video that they put out because it shows, I think they used Sadiq for this. But let's see if we can go ahead and play that. Hold on. Okay. So that's pretty cool. They're going with a kind of a white jersey
Marines
with a gray helmet and I think, what was it, like gray pants. So I think it's going to look fantastic during the whiteout. I think this was a really good choice. I think a lot of people were kind of pulling for doing the Stormtrooper setup, and that would have been interesting in the whiteout, but I think that I think they were going for something that was a little bit more of a statement. So this combination looks really, really clean. So I think it's going to look nice on national TV. And then kind of the last top story. Just wanted to kind of give a plug to Max Torres from Scoop Duck. He posted an article, and you do have to be a subscriber for this, but he posted an article yet today that gives an update on some of the linebacker recruiting. He gives an update on some potential flips away from Oregon, from like Tank Jones and Nacho, and so I don't want to share like what he says, but he gives some opinions on that, and then also he shared an update on an offer that the Ducks made to, I think, a defensive back. So if you want some updates on Duck recruiting, I highly recommend checking that out. You do have to be a subscriber, but the content's really good, and Max does a fantastic job of tracking down updates on Duck recruiting. So definitely pop on over and check that out. I'll provide a link to that as well. So the next thing I wanted to share, and this is kind of going back to what I was talking about when the show first started, was I listen to a lot of podcasts. I love listening to Duck podcasts. I do listen to some Blazer podcasts, but mostly it's Ducks, and there's a lot of different podcasts out there. And I'm going to try to expand and share some of the smaller or lesser known podcasts in future shows. But these are my top 5. These are the ones that I listen to every week. These are the ones I listen to, as soon as they post updates from, either whether it's a recap of a game or a preview of an upcoming game, or they talk about recruiting, or they talk about just various storylines. So I'm going to give my top 5 Duck podcasts, and then I'm also just going to share a couple different guys I listen to that are national that I enjoy. And then that'll be the end of this particular episode. So top 5 podcasts. So let's see. Number 1. This is my everyday. This is kind of, I would kind of relate it to like, it's like my morning coffee. So I really enjoy the Locked On Ducks podcast with Spencer McLaughlin. Spencer does a fantastic job. They're only 30-minute episodes. He does them every day. And it's a really good kind of just a quick window into what's going on with the Ducks. So if you just want something quick, like maybe you listen to on your commute or on your lunch break or whatever, Spencer does a fantastic job of just putting together a 30-minute episode that's really entertaining. He's great to listen to. He knows a lot about the team. So I highly recommend the Locked On Ducks podcast. This week, he did a review of the Oregon State game on Monday. He did a preview. Really, the last 2 episodes have kind of been previews of the Penn State game. Because on Tuesday, Tuesday he talked about what kind of how big of a massive opportunity this game is, and then also kind of gave some of his standouts from the Oregon State game. And then today he put out a preview with Zach Sako from Locked On Nittany Lions. So highly recommend it if you just want a 30-minute glance into either a recap or preview of the upcoming game. I would say Locked On Ducks is fantastic. So definitely hop on over there and check them out. My number 2 would be the Ducks Dish podcast, which is Max Torres from Scoop Duck. Max has been on a tear lately, just posting tons of good content. I think he's kind of trending towards doing daily podcasts as well. And Max, he's down in Southern California. He digs up all kinds of good updates on recruiting. So this week he did a recap of the Oregon State game on Monday. He does a weekly check-in with Ted LaRue from the That Show Out West podcast, which is also a Scoop Duck one. And they talked a little bit about the Penn State game and what's going on with that. And then he also today had Landon Tengwall of he's a podcaster that primarily covers Penn State, but he does just absolutely in-depth analysis of all 22, like breaking down offense schemes, defensive schemes. So that was a great podcast talking about this upcoming matchup with Portland State, PSU. Get them mixed up with Penn State. So Max, again, fantastic for recruiting information. So I would definitely check out Max. His show is always really interesting and has lots of good information in it. And then my third one is Autzen Audibles. Those are the Duck Territory guys, Matt Prem and Eric Scopel. And what I really like about those two is they're pretty much always on the ground at the game. You'll hear them a lot in the press conferences for Dan Lanning or the players, asking really good and really relevant questions. And, they also have a lot of really good inside information because they're at the practices and they're at the games. And those are the kind of people you want to listen to if you want to make sure that you're hearing all the most up-to-date information about injuries or, who's going to play and that kind of stuff. So I highly recommend Autzen Audibles. I think it's a fantastic podcast. Theirs run a little bit longer, but it's worth it. They did a mailbag on Monday, and then they did a preview show with a Penn State insider on Tuesday. So highly recommend hopping over to Autzen Audibles and checking those guys out. They're top notch. My fourth is the QB11 show. They're also linked to Scoop Duck, and those guys are just fantastic for just breaking down the X's and the O's. That's what their bread and butter is. They are so good at getting into how things came together and what happened in the game. So if you want to hear somebody really break down what was working, what wasn't working, you're talking about the offensive line or the defensive line or Dante Moore, like I really recommend. And their shows definitely run a little bit longer, but it's good content. And so I really can't recommend them enough. If you really want to try to understand more what's going on, what's happening, because that's not my strength. This X's and O's, I'm never been that great at breaking that stuff down. So they're good at talking about different recruits that are coming in and who's actually on the field and how things are working out. And then my last one is the Progrum with Dusty Hara, who does all the sideline reporting at the Duck games, and Cole Linehan, and they do more, I think, human interest stuff. They do recaps and previews and stuff like that, but they're Dusty's a radio guy, so they do a lot of kind of original, like today they had on, or sorry, yeah, it was today. They had a really great interview with former Duck Nick Reed, and they talked a little bit about his time with the Ducks, but also he went on to become an Air Force, I think they said B-2 bomber, like stealth bomber pilot. So that's just really interesting, really cool stuff. So, and I really enjoy listening to Dusty. He knows a lot about the team. He's the sideline reporter, so he travels with them, and it's just kind of another great, different angle to listen about the Ducks. So highly recommend that one as well. So those are my five. Locked On Ducks for everydayers. Ducks Dish if you want to stay really up to date on recruiting. Autzen Audibles if you want to hear more about what's going on at practice and behind the scenes, and those are the guys that are there. QB11 if you want to listen more about like X's and O's and how the games are broken down, and then the Progrum Podcast is a great kind of human interest and just listen to guys talk about the Ducks. So those are my five. And then really the last thing I would talk is just kind of some of the national podcasts that I listen to. So Joel Klatt is great. He knows a lot about kind of the bigger picture, the national scene. He's been very complimentary of the Ducks. He's talked a lot about the Ducks this season. So I definitely would recommend checking out Joel Klatt. I think JD Pickell of On3 is also fantastic, and I listen to his previews and talking about recruiting, and I'm a really big fan of him as well. And then one of the other shows that I really like, and it's not as big, is the Ruffino and Joe show, and they've also done a lot of Duck content, and they're just they have a really good rapport. And they're very complimentary of the Ducks, and I've really enjoyed listening to them as well. So I'm sure there's other national ones I'm not remembering, but those are the kind of the ones I've been listening to lately. And I just really highly recommend them if you're looking for more of like a holistic college football approach. Then that's a really good to sprinkle that in with your Duck podcast, but. Just if you want to hear them talking about kind of the other big games of that weekend, or how the Ducks fit into the bigger picture with other national brands like Alabama and Georgia and Oklahoma and Texas, those kind of things. So so those are the podcasts that I listen to. Just in terms of like news, I spend a lot of time on Reddit, the Ducks Reddit and the college football Reddit. It has a lot of great content from social media and articles and things like that. So I'll be sharing a lot of this stuff as it comes. I'm gonna try to do it 2 or 3 times a week. But really just want to make sure I bring everyone up to speed and what's going on in case you missed something. So please tune in. Definitely want to talk more Ducks and do my best to share with y'all everything that I see over the course of a week. So thank you for tuning in to the first episode of the Ducks After Dinner podcast, and I will talk to y'all soon.